Okay, let's get right into this. There's this profound truth, and it seems so simple, but it really governs our entire experience.
Hmm.
And it's that the way you begin your day, it dramatically shapes everything that follows. I mean, we've all been there, right? You jump out of bed, you're already late, fueled by chaos, and the rest of the day just feels like you're constantly playing catch up. But what if you started it differently? One of the source reflections we have here suggests starting with a smile, calmness of mind, coolness of emotions, and a heart filled with gratitude. That kind of focused internal state is exactly what we're going to deep dive into today. You've given us this incredible stack of sources, daily reflections, ancient wisdom, some really challenging philosophy. And together, they really force us to look at our deepest beliefs, our loyalties, and maybe most importantly, how we act on all of it.
Right. And what's so fascinating is that all these sources you share, they're all asking this one really ancient question. It boils down to,
Hmm.
where is your true anchor? And then how does that internal stability translate into, external service? So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack these three concepts that really build on each other. We're moving from the inside out. First, we need that internal foundation we're calling true faith. Then second, the external expression, which is universal service. And finally, the practical method for making it all real, purposeful, sustainable action.
And it's quite a journey we're taking you on. We're starting with this search for unshakable peace, looking at Jesus calming the storm, and even the legend of the water horse. Then we're going to pivot pretty sharply to the ethical side of loyalty with Leo Tolstoy and his surprisingly radical take on patriotism. And we'll land on the practical stuff. How do you act on your dreams without burning out? We've got insights from T.E. Lawrence and even Hippocrates. So let's start at the core, the anchor. So let's unpack this central challenge, this sort of uncomfortable idea that the source material puts forward. It's that our faith so often is focused on, or I guess limited to, a thing.
That thing, yeah.
It could be your job, your talent, a relationship, your health. We put our security in the gifts, not in
Yeah.
the amazing God or whatever ultimate source provides them.
And that's exactly what the crisis point is. If your faith is in the gift, what happens when the gift is threatened or just taken away? The whole foundation just cracks. And this tension is captured perfectly in that gospel passage, Mark chapter 4. Jesus and his disciples are in a boat. A huge storm hits. Waves are crashing over the side. I mean, they think they're going to die. And
Yeah.
Jesus is asleep. So they panic. They wake him up, and he just stands up and says to the storm, "Silence, be still." And it just stops. Total calm.
Hmm.
But the conversation that follows is the key. The first thing he asks them is, and it's just devastating. He says, "Why are you afraid? Do you still have no faith?"
Okay, I get the power of the miracle, but let's be real for a second. These were human beings. Isn't it just
Hmm.
natural to panic when you think you're about to drown? That's just biology, not a lack of faith.
And that's the critical distinction the material is making. It's not about suppressing that natural fear response. It's about where their ultimate trust was placed. See, they believed in Jesus when the sea was calm, when everything was going their way. They could see the outcome. But the second the waves got high, that trust just vanished. If they truly believed who was in the boat with them, they would have acted in spite of the fear. Their security wouldn't have been tied to the circumstances.
So the insight here is that if you're anchored in the provider, you're anchored beyond the circumstances themselves.
Exactly. The reflection points out that true faith still believes in God, even when I don't feel, hear, or see God. If your faith depends on good feelings or favorable conditions,
Mm.
if you need to see the result before you trust, that's not faith, that's just observation.
That idea of holding on to a gift that is, as the source says, beyond your comprehension, it reminds me of that film, The Water Horse, Legend of the Deep.
Yeah.
You've got this young boy, Angus, and his father is missing in World War II. He's coping with all this grief and uncertainty, and he finds this enormous egg in Loch Ness.
And out hatches this creature, the water horse. It's huge, it's strange, but it's this incredibly gentle and faithful companion for him. Angus held on to that egg. He nurtured it, even though he had no idea what it was or what it would become. It was this protector that existed completely outside his difficult wartime reality.
It's such a powerful metaphor, isn't it, for that kind of foundational faith. You don't know what you're getting when you start down that path, but you have to keep nurturing it, holding on, even when you can't see the outcome or really understand the gift you've been given.
And this is how we connect that huge spiritual lesson back to a simple daily practice. What's the result of having that kind of unshakable anchor? Well, the opening reflection gives us the answer. It's internal stillness. It's what allows us to begin the day with a smile, calmness of mind.
So that stillness isn't the goal itself, it's the mirror. It reflects the state of your faith.
Precisely. A mind that's truly anchored discovers that my still mind reflects only peace and holiness. It's not an empty stillness. It's what happens when you move the anxiety and doubt off the surface because your foundation is solid. You're reflecting something divine instead of just absorbing all the chaos from the world.
So the uncommon key here for you listening is really just demanding honesty. You have to find your true anchor. If your sense of security is tied up in a thing, your status, your money, your control over things, the first step is just to confess that and release it. That honesty is the start.
That's a great place to pause. We've got the anchor, but an anchor that just holds you still is only doing half the job. The whole point of that internal stillness is to prepare you for external movement. If you're anchored in, say, a universal love, that love has to expand, and that's where Leo Tolstoy comes in to really shake things up.
Right, so faith is internal. How does it express itself externally? Tolstoy, in his Calendar of Wisdom, he flips the whole question of service on its head. He forces us to look at the boundaries of our loyalties.
And he immediately asks, who exactly are we serving? Tolstoy declares that man's purpose is to serve all mankind, not to serve only one man while doing harm to others. This right here identifies the second kind of false faith. Tribalism. It's basically saying, I will only serve my people, my nation, my family.
To the exclusion or even the harm of everyone else.
Exactly.
Now, this is a huge politically charged claim, so let's be really clear. We're just reporting what the source argues here. Tolstoy is basically challenging the whole hierarchy of loyalty. He says loving your country, loving your family, sure, those are beautiful virtues. But he argues they become vices when they get so big, so overwhelming, that they damage your fundamental love for your neighbor, no matter where they're from.
He's not subtle about it at all. He claims patriotism itself is not a virtue because it's so often used to justify the worst crimes in history. I mean, he lists things like spying, crushing taxes, sacrificing lives, waging wars, all things people are made to feel proud of just because it's done in the name of the nation.
So he's saying that this narrow loyalty gives people a kind of moral permission to act against their own conscience. But why do people grab onto it so fiercely?
Well, he offers a psychological insight from Dr. Samuel Johnson. Lost souls escape their loss of control in patriotism. It suggests that when people lack that internal anchor we just talked about, that true purpose, they look for control and identity by latching onto a group. It becomes a refuge for people who are, internally lost.
That's profound. So tribalism isn't just a political thing, it's a symptom of some kind of internal spiritual displacement.
And if you connect this to, say, professional purpose, you see the same idea. One of the sources says, teachers don't teach for the income, teachers teach for the outcome. Real purpose is measured by your contribution to others, the outcome for them. A faith that says you only serve your people is a limited faith. It just ignores the call to a universal service.
But that kind of service to all mankind, that's not a passive feeling. It demands energy.
Yeah.
The sources use an African proverb to remind us, a feeble effort will not fulfill the self.
And it definitely won't fulfill the mission. Real service requires real commitment. You can't just give humanity your leftover energy or, half-hearted gestures. You need your full strength. Which brings us perfectly to our third piece, the engine, the importance of sustained, purposeful action.
That transition is so critical. Service needs action. It takes us from these high ideals into, concrete reality. So how do we do it? How do we turn this commitment into a daily practice without just being totally overwhelmed?
We need an engine. And it has to be a powerful one. We need a way to consistently and sustainably act on the dreams that are born from our faith and our desire to serve.
For that, we turn to T.E. Lawrence of Arabia, and this incredible distinction he makes. He says, all men dream, but not equally. The night dreamers, he says, wake up and find their dreams were just vanity, useless fantasies. But the dreamers of the day are dangerous men.
Dangerous men, I love that.
Why dangerous? Because they may act their dreams with open eyes to make them possible.
That changes everything, doesn't it? It's the difference between just hoping and actually doing. It's vision combined with real-world execution. That's the engine.
And dangerous there doesn't mean malicious, it means transformative. They change the status quo.
Right. And what's fascinating is how often the biggest impact comes from simple, consistent daily actions. It's about prevention. We find this same wisdom in ancient medicine. Hippocrates said, the greatest medicine of all is to teach people how not to need it. Prevention, through simple, repeatable actions, is always more effective than panic treatment after something's already broken.
And the simple action he was famous for championing was walking. Walking is man's best medicine. It's accessible, it's universal, it sustains life.
So we apply that directly to our spiritual and intellectual lives. Simple daily habits, like physical walking or mental learning, they prevent the diseases of the spirit. Cynicism, despair, selfishness. The source specifically says, make learning a habit. Learning becomes the walking of the mind. It's that simple daily practice that keeps us ready to act on our dreams and understand the world we want to serve.
But there is a real danger here, even for people who start acting. Stagnation. Complacency. Dave Draper warns that aging is for those who sit around and think of yesterday while today is passing them by. If that true faith, that service isn't renewed every day through action, we just atrophy. We have to stay present.
That daily renewal is crucial. But here's what we have to square the circle. We just heard that proverb demanding our full effort. Now we've got this pressure to constantly renew. How do you keep the engine running without just burning out? Coach Ganjon offers this vital counterpoint. Not every good idea needs to be done at once.
That's the wisdom we needed. Because if you try to serve all of humanity and act on all your dreams at the same time, you are absolutely going to fail. You'll just crash.
Precisely. Patience, pacing, sustainable rhythms. These are essential for the dangerous dreamer. We have to use that still anchored mind we talked about in Section 1 to figure out what needs to be done now and what can wait. That still mind is what prevents the burnout that comes from trying to do everything at once. The world-changing dreams are built brick by brick, not in one chaotic, exhausting burst.
So, to bring this all together, we've been on a pretty profound journey here. We started with the need for a faith that's anchored beyond our circumstances, trusting the source, not just the gifts. And then that anchor allows our compassion to expand, challenging us, through Tolstoy, to serve everyone, not just our tribe, and to give it our full effort.
And finally, we see that we need patient, purposeful action. We need to be the dreamer of the day, acting with open eyes, using simple, consistent practices like walking and learning to make it all real.
And to reiterate that closing thought from the source, the habits we build, that moment of stillness in the morning, the habit of learning, the discipline of focused action, these are what keep us engaged and effective. True faith lets us believe and act even when the things are gone.
And true purpose unfolds through that sustained commitment, not just big emotional bursts.
So for you, the learner, we'll leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on. If walking is man's best medicine and we are called to serve all mankind, ask yourself this. What small, consistent daily practice could you commit to today? Maybe it's physical, like walking. Maybe intellectual, like learning. Maybe it's just finding that stillness and gratitude before you grab your phone. What one small thing could you do that would sustain your energy and your capacity to serve not just your closest circle, but the wider world? Begin your day with that calmness, that gratitude, and trust that this one foundational step, acted on patiently, is truly enough to start.